One Piece, Chapter 953, Once Upon a Fox. So, not the most exciting chapter, but definitely a very interesting one, and we certainly have some developments in the plot, which we're moving forward with, and we got a huge development with Zorro, and even some more stuff on Kaido, but we'll get into that, so let's do it. So rather than going over the chapter in its entirety, I kind of just want to touch on the points that I feel are most important, and then expand upon them. So first of all, we're finding out that the graves in Ringo, the location that they're currently in, are pretty unique because of the cold weather. And because of that, the corpses are kind of preserved from this, like in a frozen state, so they don't really rot like a typical corpse would, especially being there for centuries, but they're also buried with their swords, and some of these swords are even famous. So I think this might be showing us how Moria was able to get Ryuma and Shisui from him, because we know that he stole Ryuma and Shisui from Wano because he visited there back in the day and was defeated by Kaido and everything. But I think this is it. Moria was one of the grave robbers in Ringo, maybe found out about it or whatever, and went there and just went for what was, I assume, the most appealing one, since Shisui is the treasure of Wano and Ryuma is pretty famous. I mean, he's legendary for allegedly taking down a dragon, and there's whole other possibilities and theories that go into that. So once again proving that Oda has been playing 4D chess this whole time, in case you weren't aware of that. But we're also seeing that Kinemon is making contact with Kawamatsu, and this is sealing up one of the lingering storylines, something that we assumed was going to go down in the previous chapter. You know, once we found out that they had accrued all of those samurais from the jail and all the other guys that they have, but it was also relayed that they didn't have any weapons with them. Like, they had the bodies, but they didn't have the arsenal. And that's when we, ran into Gyukimaru and the whole Zorro storyline, and we know that he steals all of the weapons and everything. So we just assumed that, is this where things are headed? And for sure, it definitely is, and it's kind of been 13 years in the making, because Kawamatsu, as we saw, started back then just harvesting the weapons from the graves and everything, because he knew that, in 13 years, the prophecy was going to come true, and we're going to need these for at that time. But we're also seeing that Gyukimaru, during that time, being the protector of the bridge, which we're also finding out that he got the name from Kawamatsu, which is interesting, but he's just been hoarding even more weapons than what they originally had from their grave robbing days. And Kawamatsu is confirming that, it doesn't matter how many dudes you have, we'll have enough weapons for everyone. So I just like that that's being sealed up, that in the final war, the army that the Alliance, the Scabbards, the Ninjas, the Straw Hats, they're all going to have their fodder dudes equipped. Alright, so now let's get into the big reveal about Gyukimaru and him being the Kitsune that we've been focusing on in the flashback here. So what does this mean? Well, it could mean, a few things. So first of all, I know we probably assumed that this maybe is the work of a devil fruit, and while that could be a possibility, I just don't think that's what's going on here. We have to remember that Wano has a lot of Japanese lore and mythology going on with it, and one of them is the yokai thing. And we see that Kawamatsu, being a kappa, is a part of that whole mythology, meaning that there are supernatural paranormal beings that exist in Wano. I mean, we've even seen it since Luffy touched down with the big monkey dude and the lion dog thing that he ran into. So this is kind of commonplace here. I mean, not exactly common, but it's not unusual, I'll say. So I'm assuming that Yukimaru, the Kitsune Onimaru dude, he is a legitimate mythological creature, meaning that he didn't really have to eat a fruit. This is an inherent ability that he has, because according to the Japanese mythology about the Kitsune, the paranormal fox creature, it can transform into humans or other stuff. So this is kind of par the course for what's going on here. So it makes sense that the Kitsune, the fox thing that we see here, which also kind of looks odd. It has an ethereal quality to it. It looks like it's made of flames or something, or some kind of aura is emanating from it, or maybe it's just the way that its fur is. But still, there's something odd going on with it, and we see the smoke and transformation going on when he transforms into his humanoid Yukimaru form. I think that's just showing that he's in the same class of beings that Kawamatsu is in. not really in the same class that Chopper is. Also, there's like a whole similar dynamic with Katarina Devon, a part of the Blackbeard Pirates. We know that her fruit is like the Nine Tails fruit, and she has the ability to transform into other people and stuff like that. So it's all kind of lining up here. But I think that's also giving credence to the fact that this is like an inherent ability of him and he doesn't really have like a fruit. Although that's not completely off the table. I just don't think it's likely at this point. So now let's get into the two big bombshells that are dropped at the end of this chapter, like consecutively. So first of all, let's go into the possibility of Zoro actually parting ways with Shisui. I think that this is probably going to happen. I mean, I know it's easy to think that no, Zoro's not going to let go of Shisui. That's his sword. It's a part of him. It's been with him for a majority of the series at this point. And it seems like it was, it was legitimately passed on to him by Ryuma. Regardless of the situation with Ryuma, him having Brook's shadow and how it wasn't entirely him, I think it was implied that that was definitely Ryuma, like himself, or whatever piece of him that was a part of the whole dynamic going on. I think he legitimately wanted Zoro to have this sword. But the fact that this has been brought up twice so far, the fact that Wano wants the sword back, that it's like a treasure to them, and that it being gone causes like a whole bunch of curse and problems and everything, I think it's odd that this keeps getting touched on, and it makes me think that he's likely going to give Shisui back to Wano. I mean, because also it is a black blade, but it wasn't blackened by Zoro. It was blackened by Ryuma. So that might also play into like, okay, so maybe he doesn't want this sword because of that. But, I mean, there's also the possibility that he does keep it. But we're also finding out that in return, he would get Enma, which is Odin's sword, which is crazy. And we're going to get into the significance of it after this. But we could just assume that Enma, knowing what it's capable of, which I assume plays more part into Odin, not so much the sword, which, I mean, the sword plays its big part too, but the fact that he was able to do that to Kaido, I think is like goes hand in hand. Like anybody picking up Enma wouldn't be able to hurt Kaido with it. I mean, it was more so Odin, but him gaining Enma, which we can assume in theory is probably more of a significant sword than what Shisui is, which would mean that Zoro is definitely getting an upgrade here. He's not. It's not even like a lateral move from like Shisui to Enma. It seems like it's an upgrade. So this is either Oda just playing with our emotions here, giving us some options, having us think about some stuff, or this is legitimately going to happen. So you might be thinking like, well, Momonosuke deserves to have Enma. It was his father's sword, so naturally he should inherit it. That's a possibility too, but also like Hiyori has it, not Momonosuke. Well, Momonosuke wasn't around, but Hiyori has it for a reason, so maybe it was inherited to her, because, she is the child of Odin after all. But maybe this is like, just because it is Odin's legitimate child passing it on, means that it's legitimate. I mean, me personally, I would like to see Zoro with a crazy more powerful blade than Shisui, and it would be, kind of unfortunate for him to give it up, but it would make sense at this point. So either Zoro is going to get Enma, but he only uses it for this arc, and then at the end he gives it to Momonosuke, and then maybe keeps Shisui, because maybe after the resolution of this arc, the people of Wano feel that the curse or whatever, the bad luck that it bestows from being gone, has been lifted, because, we could just assume that they're going to take out Kaido and the Beast Pirates, or whatever's going to happen. And then maybe they're like, oh, you know what? We don't need it. You helped us out so much. You saved us. You can have Shisui back. Or it could be the same dynamic with Enma, possibly, where Momonosuke's like, you know what, I don't need this blade. I'm already the king of Wano, or whatever he's going to be. So you'd be like, you know what, I want you to have it, because you deserve it more than I do, or something like that. But we also have to remember the Nidai Kitetsu sword from the beginning of the arc. Zoro was very interested in that, the one that Luffy had. So maybe that might come into the possession of Zoro, possibly? I mean, I don't think Zoro's going to give up another sword. I mean, definitely not going to give up Wado Ichimonji. That's a very important sword. It's tied to Kuina. It's tied to the Tashigi storyline, so he's not going to get rid of that. So maybe he'll get rid of Shisui or his other sword, and then maybe he'll get Nidai Kitetsu and maybe Enma too? I don't know. It remains to be seen, but there's some significance to Nidai Kitetsu and the fact that Zoro's interested in it. So now let's get into the final bombshell, which is probably the biggest aspect of this chapter in my opinion, and that's we're finding out that Oden, using Enma, was the one who gave Kaido his one and only scar. The scar that we see on his torso in an X shape, which we've always wondered about since Kaido has been revealed. We're like, okay, so if he's so powerful, who the frig gave him that scar? Turns out it was Oden. That's insane. So it's showing us that Oden, aside from Enma, is crazy powerful, which we knew that he was. He has Conqueror's Haki, which is kind of like a prerequisite of powerful characters, or characters who have the potential to become powerful. Also, he was a part of Roger's crew. He's the leader of the 9 Red Scabbards. The hero of Wano, the leader of Wano, whatever you want to call him. He's super crazy powerful, evidently, since he was able to actually damage Kaido. Something that kind of seemed to be impossible at this point beforehand, because not even the Marines, the world government, could kill Kaido. Not even Kaido could kill himself. So the fact that somebody was able to scar him, damage him to that extent, you're pretty insanely powerful. So the fact that it's like an X shape is kind of odd. So either he cut him like once and then cut him again, like a two-piece combo, or maybe he hit him with like a special attack that kind of leaves an X shape thing, kind of like what Zoro and Mihawk can kind of do. Maybe it was like a projectile type of thing. I don't know. It remains to be seen. Maybe we'll get a flashback. Maybe we won't. But pretty significant here. Also, this was Kaido 20 years ago, so maybe he was slightly weaker than he is now. We don't really know how old Kaido is. Maybe he's near Big Mom's age, possibly. Around 70, close to 70. Something like that, possibly. But still, it appears that in the world of One Piece, the older you get, you either become more stronger or more powerful, or you just shrink and become weaker. Because we're seeing that, like, the 9 Red Scabbards, they implied that they have become stronger over the span of the last 20 years. So I assume Kaido has as well. So maybe he was a little weaker at that time, or maybe Oden truly is that freakish in power. But still, significant bit of info here. And does that mean that Zoro, in theory, using Enma, would be able to hurt Kaido? I mean, we don't assume that Zoro's going to take on Kaido. We just think that, Luffy is going to go against him, and maybe Law, maybe Kid teaming up. That would be cool, but wow, if Zoro and Luffy team up to take on Kaido, or maybe Zoro, for some reason, gets to go against Kaido at a certain point during the war, that's always a possibility. I mean, if it's like complete chaos the way that Marineford was, which is what Oda has implied it will be, then we could see all kind of crazy mashups where like Zoro's just randomly fighting Kaido for like a page or two and then he backs off or something. I don't know, so many possibilities, but this is awesome. Like I said, chapter's not that exciting, in terms of battle and stuff like that, but we got some very interesting developments, and hopefully we've closed off this one aspect of the storyline where we're just gearing up the army. Now that they have their arsenal, we have to go back to the ships, we have to finalize the other stuff, but we're closer to the war than we ever have been, thankfully. So let me know what you thought about this chapter. Let me know what you think is going to happen with Enma. Is he going to get this sword? Is he going to give up Shishui? Let me know. If you like the review, please give it a like. I also have a Patreon. It gives you access to a weekly Q&A. And if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.